Welcome, Cathy, to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. I think this is so timely, what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how to teach your teens to protect themselves after they leave home. I'm in the thick of it right now. And I want to launch in because reading about all that you have done, you are on TikTok. You are considered known as the mom friend to more than 2.3 million followers.
Mm-hmm.
Tune in to listen to your life safety hacks and videos.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are also an environmental scientist, and you've been a TV host on QVC and syndicated TV stations and all over the place. So how did you come to being a safety hack?
Yeah, you know what? It was actually through experience. I suppose it probably started a little bit with the environmental science part because what I used to focus on a lot was indoor air quality and things like that. And so, that obviously has to do with safety, but just from a health perspective. And then when I started, I've always, lived in big cities and things like that. So that obviously has some effect because you're used to seeing things that maybe you don't see in other places. I've also traveled a lot, but probably the biggest learning lesson for me was actually television. And when I started getting more active on social media as a result of being on television, because, well, frankly, like followers and job longevity have a lot to do with each other when you're on TV. So what I didn't realize, I was very young, mid-20s. And so what I didn't realize was the risk that the internet poses, right? Before, for somebody to be able to get information on you, they'd have to be at your job or at your house or, physically where you are at. And then now so much is available online that it really expanded just my consciousness with these kinds of things. And then in addition, we also did receive training, working for a big national network and millions of homes, you get a little bit of training there too.
Wow. And so you were on television and you started just becoming more aware. And this is such a need. All your videos, I learned so much. And I'm like, we're scared. I mean, we hear all the worst stories of what can happen. And then my daughter is graduating on Saturday from college, and she is in a big city right now, and she's moving to a big city. And she grew up, we're from a small town. And so
Mm-hmm.
she was just talking to me about some of the stuff that happens and some of the ways that predators can trick you. Like she was even telling me they will maybe leave money on your windshield. And so have you ever heard of that one? And you get out of your car to get
Yes,
money?
I have heard of that. So those kinds of things tend to go super viral on social media. It's kind of like internet lore. But if you look into the the history of it and where these things start, generally speaking, they're false. So I talk a little bit about that on my page. Like I've talked about the water bottle story. There's people online that swear it's happened to them, and maybe it has, but what hasn't happened is police putting out a report saying this is happening. There's an uptick in crime as a result of this. Be careful. I think oftentimes when people have the experiences, first of all, I don't know, if what people are saying online is real or not, because you have no idea. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
But I think oftentimes what happens is it could have been like a kid just, kind of being malicious, trying to mess with them, mess with their head. It could be something like that. Police haven't linked it to an uptick in crime. So it's hard, but it's hard to say, is it 100% true or 100% false? Because it's just people commenting things on the internet, right? And so you don't really know where it's coming from. But I always try to do a little bit of background research into those things and see have public service announcements been put out or any kinds of tweets and things like that. And in some cases there are police announcements. For example, recently with Apple releasing their AirTag device, which is like a little GPS tracker, which is super handy if you want to keep an eye on your bicycle, your purse, your backpack, your car, basically acts like a little mini low jack. So the downside of this device, and not just this one, there's other devices too, but Apple's just has like a longer GPS range, which is why it's popular. But the downside is that at bars or, at different places, women were reportedly finding them in pockets of their jackets, in their purse, tucked behind the license plate. And so it's been happening so much that that's something that, started on the internet as people telling their stories. And then it graduated to police making announcements about it. I think even the Washington Post recently made a video about it. I've done videos about it. And so that's one that it started on the internet, and then we're still not really sure what's happening with it, but it became something that I guess enough people were reporting that it was real.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get into that. So what I hear you saying is don't believe everything that you're hearing. You need to research it. We need to be watching your TikTok for you to tell us these things to help us out. So there's several things that you share, 5 seemingly innocent questions that predators will use to take advantage of our kids. So why don't we start there? So what do we need to be aware of?
And it could change because in person is very different than online, right? Online, you can sort of build up a little bit of trust and a little bit of a rapport so that you can get more out of the person. It's kind of easier to do it online. But oftentimes the questions are the ones that have to do with your personal facts about your life, right? So, and this could be in person or online, but, do you live alone? Where do you live? And where do you live? If you say, oh, in New York City, okay, there's millions of people there, millions of neighborhoods, maybe not hundreds of neighborhoods. So that's not really that specific. Or if you say New York now, is it the city? Is it the state, right? Something like that is very vague and probably not putting you at any major risk. But if they also have, your full legal name, your birthday, that kind of stuff, now it's easier to pinpoint who you are. Also, it depends if you rent versus own, because if you own all of your records from the home address, all of that is public. So, that's the other little caveat. But so, do you live alone? Where do you live? Why are you alone is a question that is somewhat, it's a little bit different, because when somebody's asking, why are you alone? They've already observed that you're alone. So that means they've already been kind of taking notice of what you're doing, right? So any types of questions like that. There's also typically people want to know, are there people in your life that care about you? If something happened where you're missing for 2 days, is anybody going to notice, right? So are you in a relationship? How, do you feel loved? They want to know, if you're vulnerable. And so those kinds of questions of do you have people around you who love and care about you? Do you have stability in your home? Do you have stability financially is another one too, because if you don't have financial stability, which I know as a college kid is impossible, but you have your parents, you feel somewhat stable, then it's easier to scam you, and it's easier to, say, well, listen, I have this great job for you. It's in a different country. Come with me, that kind of thing. And so those types of questions point to your vulnerabilities. And I would say those are definitely some of the most common.
Now, how does that happen? So it would look differently on social media, where they reach out to our teenager and they're building a rapport and they ask those questions. Mm-hmm. Where might that happen if you're out and about as a teenager, as a college student?
The good thing about it happening in your physical presence is that generally you have a good gut reaction in those experiences versus online, right? Online, we don't have a gut reaction. There's no 80% of communication is that physical, your body language and the tone and all of these things. And online, we don't have that. So it does make it a little bit harder to know how genuine somebody is. But when somebody is physically present in front of us, it's actually better, I think, because we can read our gut a little bit better. And so in those cases, it could be anywhere. It could be somebody hanging around the dorm. Some of these campuses are very, like, I went to an all women's college. If there was a guy, we immediately know he didn't go to our school, right? So immediately, and there were certain floors where men were not allowed to be and stuff like that in the dorm. So, you immediately know that somebody's out of place. But in some of these large campuses, you have 50,000 people, it's impossible to know who's a student, who's a teacher, who's a worker. And so it really could just be anybody. It could be on campus. It could be at bars is an easy one, right? Especially if people are drinking, maybe their senses are not as quick to respond as they would be in other scenarios. So that's an easy one. But I even met, like, in college, I met like some creepy dudes just waiting for the bus stop to get back to campus, and it was just a college bus stop, but you just never really know what somebody's intentions are. So, my approach is I always like to play nice. You play nice, you're vague. I don't want to escalate the situation. I don't want you to know that I think you're a creep and so that I'm on guard. So I just kind of, oh yeah, the puppy, whatever, and then make like a quick exit. There are some people that have opinions on, just say a hard no, a hard whatever, which does work for certain scenarios, but that's where like your gut comes in. If you're trying to like be vague and get out of a situation and somebody is being persistent, that's when all right, now I got to get nasty with you.
Yeah. So what are some situations and is this mostly, I wondered, is this mostly girls or are boys also susceptible?
It is. So it's interesting because it is pretty even. Like, I think it's like a 60-40 kind of split between like boys and girls, but on like the general perception is that women are more affected than and there are some numbers that show that women are more affected, but then kind of like when you look into it, like the population size might have been like a little different, so anyways, it does affect women slightly more than men. But that being said, that could be true with like harassment and stuff like that, but men are affected more with like violence because like the fighting and that kind of stuff. And it could even be over a girl, but there's definitely more like fighting. So, and they definitely more violent. So it is, it could affect anybody. And then also, there's other elements too, like, your race, your gender, are you more feminine? Do you present more masculine? Like those kinds of things can also affect the way people perceive you on the street. And then if they're upset by your presence in any way, are you going to get unwanted attention because of whatever, just the way you are, which also happens.
Yeah. So what are some common situations at college? And what are these predators going for? I know that that sex trafficking, that's one that so many of my moms are scared about, that they don't even want to let their girls go to the mall. Like they're very afraid of that, and of course, when they're 11, you got to go with them, it depends on the age and talking to them and communicating, and then they get to college.
Right.
So that's a little different. So what should we be telling our kids? What do they need to worry about?
I think
or be aware of. I won't say worry.
Yeah.
Tactics aren't usually helpful, but what do we need to have talks around?
I guess there's a couple like good things in that regard, in that generally speaking, when we're talking about something like trafficking, it's like somebody somebody in the family, a friend, or it's something more drastic, like drug kind of war or destabilization because your country's government has collapsed and you're being forced to, go across borders and stuff like that. Like what's happening in Ukraine right now, that puts a lot of people in a very vulnerable situation to be trafficked because they're getting across borders. You don't know who to trust. You may not speak the language. You don't have a job, right? Like those are like, you're highly vulnerable for those situations. For something to happen just randomly, somebody you don't know at the mall is actually pretty rare, which is a good thing. And when it does happen, luckily police have like pretty good recovery rates. So that's like one thing to be aware of. The downside is that it's almost harder to know, oh, this friend that I've been talking to, my girlfriend, just put me in this situation where now I've disappeared from my family, right? And we've kind of seen it even with like these sort of famous celebrity types of cases, like the R. Kelly case, where he was bringing in these teen girls that were just about to turn 18, and just kind of like brainwash them, and, oh, I'm going to give you a career in music and all this stuff. And now you're trapped in my house and your parents have no authority over you because now you're a legal adult and I've brainwashed you. And, those are the types of things that you have somewhat of a relationship with them. And it does make you more vulnerable, especially if somebody has power like that. But I would say from a parenting perspective, the most important thing is communication. I mean, your kid, and like if they are telling you what's happening at school, what's, the funny things that they saw on social media, they're showing you their phone. Oh, look at what I just found, mom. That you have like a good relationship and somebody who probably isn't, keeping secrets from you. But if it's the opposite, if it's I'm locked in my room 12 hours a day, I have a secret phone that you've never heard of, or, there's people coming. I have friends that I'm saying, oh, I met at school, but they're older than me, or they live in another state. They live in California, but I met at school and then they moved, things like that. These kinds of things are like little red flags of like, what is my kid into? And another easy way, if you're like, I really have no idea what's going on through this kid's head, look through their social media, open their Instagram app, their TikTok app, even if you're not looking through their messages, which, I mean, everybody has different opinions on that, depending on your kid. I mean, I look, but if you want to know what your kid is into, just open that For You page on TikTok and you will know in less than 5 minutes. Are they into illegal substances? Are they into sexy kinds of clothes? Or are they into, what kind of music are they into? What kind of dances are they into? You will know everything in 5 minutes, because those algorithms are so pointed. They will even tell you if your kid is depressed. It will know. And when you open up that feed and you start seeing all these things about depression, you'll be like, oh, okay, maybe something's going on here. Maybe I need a mental health consult, because in some ways it's bad, because you could easily go down a rabbit hole on these apps and kind of stay in this state of whatever, depression or substance abuse. It's almost like a confirmation bias. You think the entire world is like that. But in the other way, it's kind of good from a parenting perspective, because you can use it as a tool.
Yeah, to be able to check up on I love that, to be able to look, and that it will show you what they're watching.
Right. What are they into that maybe they're telling you, maybe they're not? I have a 17-year-old sister. I opened up her For You page and I was like, okay, we need to talk. Like, what is going on? But then I have a 12-year-old niece. I look at hers, and hers is, people making slime and foam stuff, and like satisfying videos, crayons being chopped up in little shape. Like, I'm like, okay, you're fine.
Yeah. Then, there's no red flags there. Like,
exactly.
Watch out for the red flags.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also curious. One of the things that my daughter was saying, and this actually happened to her, is she said one of the things that she has heard you need to be careful about is if an elderly person is knocking on your window saying that they are in trouble, and that is one of the ways that they actually can take advantage of you. And she said that happened to her. She dropped my husband off at the airport, and she said an elderly woman came up. She's like right there, dropping off, knocking on her window and saying, I'm in help. I'm in trouble. I need help. I need help. And she said, I felt so badly, but I just drove away. But there are a lot of people around. Mm-hmm. So, what do you make of that?
Well, and I mean, if she was at an airport, there is no reason for anybody to be coming to her, right? There are authorities on every square inch. There's kiosks, there's everything. What could she possibly need help with? But that does happen. And it happens, not just in public settings like an airport or a parking lot or something like that. It happens at your home. And it could be a woman knocking on the door. And when you open the door, you know, a group of people from around the corner come in, barrel through the door, and generally it's theft related, but they often are armed. So it's very scary. And I mean, it's unfortunate in those situations because of course we want to help people. You know, if we see a woman with a baby screaming that she needs help, of course we want to help her, but it's just not really, we don't know, is it safe, is it not safe? And so in the situation where it's at your door kind of thing, you could offer to call the cops for somebody. In the situation of the airport, like with your daughter, there was just no reason, unless the woman was, you know, on the floor because she fainted or hurt herself or hit her head or something like that, then I would be like, let me call emergency services for you. But if you're standing at my door, you can go stand at the actual door. That's the help desk, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unfortunate though, because that does happen a lot and we want to help. And I mean, in a way, it's a lot of scams are like that too. Like they're, you know, they're just like fake things. Like, I saw one, and this is like so messed up, but it was somebody saying that their puppy needed surgery and was starting like a GoFundMe kind of page, and it was completely fake. It was just a scam. It's
Yeah, no,
hard.
that's so disheartening because we want to help.
Mhm.
And that, you know, you have to really be aware. What would somebody do? And what would have happened? Let's say this was a woman that was had bad intentions. What would they do? And what if she would have opened up her window? What might
Yeah.
have happened? What are they
Well,
after?
it could often it oftentimes it is theft related where, you know, maybe they want the vehicle, maybe they want something from her. In that case of the airport, I mean, airports are, you know, high trafficked areas where they even have like trafficking like posters in like the bathrooms and stuff like that of, you know, if you feel unsafe or you call this number and all of that. So airports, there are other types of risks. It could have been anything in her situation, but oftentimes I've seen, and there's like tons of videos of this online, so you know it's hard to say it's faked when it's somebody's like Ring camera type of video. But oftentimes it's like they steal the car, or maybe they steal something, you know, I don't know
Yeah,
even
yeah,
what she looked like. Did she have a Chanel bag on her, you know, like that kind of thing? It could be
yeah, yeah.
anything.
Okay, good to know because I always wondered. So, how can our kids protect themselves in an apartment or a dorm?
So one thing is move-in day is a very big high theft time. And it's also, and it's an easy high theft time because of course you're leaving all the doors open, right? You're coming up and down the elevator 25 times. For convenience, your car door is open, or the truck door is open, or the building door is open, your dorm door is open, right? So that's like a peak time when stuff gets stolen because it's just easy. Everything's open, it's free access to everything. So like if you really care about your stuff and want to make sure that it's protected, when you unload the truck or your car or whatever, lock everything up. I know it seems simple, like people will say, well, if somebody really wanted it, they'll just break the window, which is true, but it's amazing how much a simple lock can deter people. I see videos in my like neighborhood community app all the time. We have cars stolen. I mean, I think in the month of June, there was like 25, 30 cars stolen in my neighborhood alone. And I'm in a small town and a nice town. So it happens all the time, but you see these videos of people going up to the doors locked and they just walk away because they don't want to, like, there's so many people that unlock their things that they're like, I'll just move on to an easier target. Now, if you have, you know, I don't know, $10,000 sitting on your passenger seat, maybe they'll break the window because that's a high reward. But anyways, it's amazing how much something simple like a little lock can, you know, can change things. And then the other thing, there's a lot of things that you can do whether you're renting or owning. With things that you can get on Amazon, like little window alarms or door alarms, or even the doorbell cameras, like they're battery operated. And so you don't have to drill any holes. You don't have to, you know, you do have to recharge your battery. That's the downside. But you can like take advantage of these tools. It's so much easier now. And there's sets on Amazon. I think it's like $25 for little alarms. And if it goes off, you get a text to your phone. So even if you're not home, you get access. Oh, and actually one thing I would add to the high peak theft times, not just move-in days, but also any periods where there's vacation, spring break, Thanksgiving, kind of winter break, all of those kinds of things where your things are left unattended. That's like a higher time where, people know, oh, this is maybe not so much on a dorm because the campus still has security and stuff like that. But if you're in an off-campus apartment, then it's an easier target. And that happened to my husband actually in college, where they came in. This is in Maryland. And of course, the other thing is that all these colleges are always in like not great neighborhoods, right? Like the college is very safe. And then the surrounding areas are usually not that great. So my husband was in his room sleeping, and a couple guys came in and they started, tearing things apart. They stole like gaming systems and games and TVs and that kind of stuff. And my husband heard it and he was terrified, but they knocked on his door and he lied. He was like, oh, yeah, John's not here right now. He made a noise so that they know somebody is present. So I don't want to go in there because I'm not looking for a physical altercation, right? Usually I just want to steal stuff and I don't want to get caught. And if I do get caught, I don't want like high jail time. If I, fight somebody or kill somebody, I'm going to have a much higher jail time than if I stole your PlayStation, right? So anyway, and he just lied and said, oh, John's not here, and let them steal whatever was outside, and they didn't go into his room. So that's another thing, actually. I feel like a lot of times when somebody knocks on our door, we want to be quiet because we're like, oh, just leave me alone. Like, I don't want to be. But the thing that you're supposed to do is make it known that you're home. And if if you feel that, well, I don't want them to know that I'm a girl who's alone or something like that, then there's other things you could do. You could turn on the television, you could flip on a light in the bathroom, just something to indicate this house is not empty. Because usually they want, in terms of theft, usually they want an empty house. And you can even use the smart devices like, an Echo or a Google Home or any of those kinds of devices. And you can play music, but you could even make they have a barking dog sound and stuff like that. So you can use, sounds of anything to just kind of make it known somebody's here. You can even pretend that you have a dog, put like a big muzzle, one of those metal muzzles or those giant like choker metal collars, just kind of hanging by a visible window or hanging by the door or something. So somebody thinks there's like a big dog in there. Nobody likes big dogs. Poodles, they're not afraid. Mini poodles, they're not afraid. But
we have a poodle. We have a standard poodle.
I have a mini.
Yeah, and he's as sweet as can be, but people are scared of him. And if somebody broke in, is smart enough. I think he'd probably do something.
My dog wouldn't, but they don't need to know that.
So, wow. So actually, because if you act like if they know somebody's there, your husband really thought on his feet to say John's not home. So he was acting like he didn't know somebody was even stealing, right?
Right. He was acting like they were just looking for a roommate.
And did they leave immediately?
Yeah, they, I think, stole a couple more like games or whatever, but they left and, he didn't care. He was just like, I would rather take whatever you want. I just don't want to end up hurt or he was also, as he was lying, he was like holding his baseball bat just in case.
Okay. Gosh. Wow. Yeah, because my daughter's moving into an apartment in a big city. So next month. So I'm thinking about this. You're giving me good ideas to have her get one of those little things, on her door that you can see what's there. What else? What about parking lots?
It's funny because some experts say that like we shouldn't actually be as afraid in parking lots as we are, like especially as women, we tend to be uncomfortable in parking lots. I disagree with that because I feel like it is, it's a time where like, if I am uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable. Like, let me be uncomfortable. It's not saying that there's heightened crime in parking lots versus other places. It could be all the same, But you feel more vulnerable in a parking lot because your back is turned maybe at some point. So here's a couple things that I do. I like to park my car if I can, it depends on, sometimes you have to park faced in, but I like to park with the rear. I like to back into a spot.
Okay.
Because for me, a couple of things. One, if something happened, I feel like I can get into my car faster. I don't have to turn my back into where I'm blocked by 4 cars. I'm kind of closer to the edge. So I feel more comfortable that way. But also if something happens, I could just speed out. I don't have to worry about, oh, am I backing over somebody or what? I have full visibility to see people, which actually not just in emergency situations, but just in general, because you have full visibility, it does reduce most of the accidents with pedestrians and stuff like that are in parking lots, people either backing out of a driveway or backing out in a parking lot. So when you park reverse in, it is safer from just like regular, it's always safer. But also as a woman, I feel that I'm safer if I'm approached because I just feel like the way I'm parked, I can get in and out faster. And then of course there's things that I think we all do, which is always keeping the doors locked. The second you get in, you lock the door.
I do that. I do that. And I look in my back seat, even though I've locked it, I'm I've watched way too many scary movies.
At the gas station, that's a big one. I'm very lucky that because I'm in New Jersey, I actually never have to get out of my car to pump gas. So I just roll down the window, give them my card, and we have attendants in Jersey. It should really be done at every, yes. And it's fantastic. If it's raining, if it's cold, if it's whatever, somebody comes and pumps your gas. You're not allowed to get out of the car and pump your own gas.
I did not know that in New Jersey.
Yep.
Wow, that's nice, like the old days.
Yeah. They're supposed to technically clean the windows and stuff too, and then you tip them, but nobody ever does that. Nobody actually cleans it anymore. But yeah, so I would say that. Another thing is, aside from parking close and in well-lit areas and stuff like that, if your car has an alarm and let's say you're coming out, sometimes when I was a teenager, I would just kind of loiter in parking lots, sitting on cars, talking to friends. And I knew that I wasn't doing anything bad. But if somebody, let's say I was at a mall parking lot and that's somebody's car and there's 6 kids hanging around their car and you're coming out by yourself, of course you're going to be like, well, why are all these people near my car? So another thing that you could do is set off your alarm as a warning of oh, I'm approaching the car, see if they kind of disperse. The same is true in your home. If you don't have an alarm system, which is often the case if you're renting or, in a dorm or something like that, sleep with the car alarm. Actually, you should technically sleep with the keys of your car closer to on your nightstand, not by the front door. Because people do smash and grab kind of things where they know people keep their keys by the front door, so they grab them and then steal the car. That happens if they need the key. Oftentimes you don't even need the key. But anyways, if you're sleeping with your remote control to the car and you hear a noise, you can set it off. And these things are deterrents, but usually when people are committing crime, the goal is not to get caught. And so big sounds, big lights, things like that increase my chances of being seen, identified, and caught. And so I don't want these things to be around. And actually lights is another part of that. They've actually done tests on this. It's something I talk about in my book, but they've actually done tests on this. And I think the number was better lighting reduced crime by 33%, something like that. It was a big chunk of a big number. So that applies to our homes too. I don't know. It was just a test study and I don't know why they didn't fully institute okay, lighting works. Let's add more lighting. They were just oh, lighting works. Okay, study's over. But anyways, a takeaway for us with our homes and things like that is, you can get some of these tools and it doesn't have to be hardwired. It could, there's so many things that they sell now that are solar powered and that are sticky. So you're not damaging, especially when you're renting or in a dorm, you're not damaging anything.
Mace and tasers. Is that something you recommend?
Yeah,
kids get?
I think so. I mean, they're easy to use. They're non-lethal, right? The only thing is that there are state restrictions about it. For example, I went to college in Massachusetts where you weren't allowed to have that, at least not a taser. Now, I'm from Florida, so I brought it anyways. It was in my car. I never had to use it or anything. But the one thing I will say is, so the pepper spray stuff is great because it gives you a little bit of distance, right? You can use it within like 6 feet. So that's good. With tasers, there's often a confusion between a stun gun and a taser. So the stun gun is the little zappy one. And like sometimes it's like disguised as a lipstick or a phone or just a little box. And you have to get up close to somebody to use that. And also it doesn't really do much. Like, I mean, I've tased myself, like not tased, stunned myself with those little things. Me and my friends used to do it to each other in high school, like for fun. And it doesn't really do anything. And when somebody's adrenaline is running super high, like it might, if you're zapping it from far away and be like, stay away, I've got a little zappy thing, that might deter somebody. But in reality, like if you're already up close and in combat, it's probably not gonna do too much. So the other one is a taser. Now a real taser has wires that shoot out, and it has like little claws at the end that burrow into the skin. So then when it zaps you, you're generally like destabilized, and like it could go through winter coats as well, because and the good thing about that is you have some distance. And so there is a company, it's called Taser actually, but their parent company is Axon, AXON. They are the ones that supply the tasers to police departments. And if you ever look at body cam footage from police, if you look on the upper right hand corner or sometimes on the bottom left, you'll usually see something that says Axon. That's the company. And so they have a line for law enforcement, but they also have a line for consumers. And so the difference is law enforcement tasers are about 5 seconds because they're trained to tase and then capture the person, right, through other means, handcuffs and all these things. Consumers don't have that training. So the consumer taser length is 30 seconds because the goal is tase and run away. And hopefully the person is, destabilized for 30 seconds. That gives you a good lead to be able to get away from them, unless there's other kinds of like ailments or something. So those are pretty cool. The thing is that they're not legal everywhere. They're also much larger than pepper spray. Like I have a couple of them. It's about the size of a flashlight. I'd say maybe like 7-8 inches. So it's a little chunkier. A pepper spray is something that, you could just throw on your keychain or slip into a little pocket. It's smaller. So, I mean, I have a whole bunch of things because I like playing with this stuff, but it's pretty cool. And actually they have, that company has one, if I'm not mistaken, it's a stun gun, a taser, and a flashlight. So like if you're walking your dog at night, for example, you can use the flashlight and then know that, because the thing with tasers too is with the 2 prongs, you want to split the belt level. So you want to get one above the waist and one below the waist to have like maximum effect. And if you miss or anything like that, then, which unless you practice is like probably likely, it's not as effective. So then this thing also has a stun gun built into it as like a backup, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is cool. My son actually bought one for both of his sisters. And it's like what you're talking about. They can't carry it really as far as like on a keychain.
Right.
Have it yet. They have it and they can carry it with them, like you said.
They do make the little ones that are like pocket size, but it's not a taser, it's a stun gun. And so those are the ones where it's like, I mean, if I had to choose personally, I would prefer pepper spray because of the distance.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, Cathy, there's so many good things that you've shared with us. Anything else that stands out to you that we haven't talked about? I want you to tell everybody about your book too, as we get ready to close.
Well, I would say one more thing that's actually pretty easy and simple to do when you move into a new house or apartment or something like that, even if you're renting, is look at the screws in the strike plate. And the strike plate's that little metal part where when you close the door, where the latch goes in, that little metal part. So look at the screws there. Oftentimes they're just 1/2 inch short. And if you extend it to 1 inch or 1.5 inch or something, and this is something that you could get for like $1 at the hardware store, it's so cheap, and you just change the screws, it actually makes your door sturdier in terms of like being kicked down or anything like that, because the little screws, those 1/2 inch ones, don't go into the framing of the house. It just kind of stays in that little, that little border on the door that like doesn't really do much. So anyways, it kind of stays in there. But when you make it longer, it goes into the framing of the house. Now, of course, this depends, like if you're in a brick kind of place where maybe it's a little bit harder, or maybe your door frames are metal or something and it's a little harder, then that's different. But just your average wooden kind of door frame, that's like a nice little trick that, I don't know how often people are coming down trying to kick down doors, but if they do, it makes it harder for them.
I had that happen in college. Somebody kicked in our door,
Wow.
our apartment, and robbed us. And, and threw everything off our back balcony, all our stuff, our TVs, all of that. But they kicked in the door, and with people next, on both sides of us that just kind of heard something but didn't go out and check. And
right.
So it does happen. So that's a good little tip.
There's a kind of a scam going on. Well, I guess, would I call it a scam? No, I guess it's just theft. Anyways, something similar where this just happened, I think in Washington State, where somebody left their home for an extended period of time. And I guess she didn't have locks on the windows or something like that. Anyway, she comes home to people in her apartment, but not only that, they sold off all her stuff on like Facebook Marketplace. They sold $50,000 worth of her stuff. So she went away to, I don't know where, and she came back to an empty apartment.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, in a way, that's but you know what? Sometimes on Facebook Marketplace, we see these things and we're like, it's either a scam or it's stolen goods because the deal seems too good to be true,
Yeah.
So maybe that, but yeah. So it's amazing. People find all types of way to make money.
Yeah, no kidding. Gosh. But that probably doesn't happen that much, right?
No, I would think not. I mean, I would think generally when people are stealing things, I mean, if your place is unlocked, yeah, it does make it easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that they always,
right.
I don't know that they always go through the trouble of selling it on Facebook Marketplace. They usually, most thefts is like 12 to 15 minutes in your house or apartment or whatever. And they're looking for medicines, cash, alcohol, jewelry, weapons, electronics is a big one, that kind of thing. They're, quick things that you could just easily grab and sell.
Yeah. Grab and run.
Right.
Yeah.
And things that are easy to sell and like not really that traceable. Although I will say with gaming systems and electronics and stuff like that, a lot of people don't write down their serial numbers and save it. But if you do, it makes it easier for police to try to find it, because generally if somebody is reselling the stuff to like a pawn shop, what I've been told by a detective is that they'll generally be within like a 2-mile radius of your home. So police will send out notifications to like local pawn shops and things like that, or at least they're supposed to.
Okay. Apps. I know we were saying,
I
forgot to ask you, what are some good apps that parents can have access to that will help to keep your kids safe?
Yeah. So actually, speaking of the tasers and pepper sprays, there's actually some that are aligned, like they're interconnected with an app. So like if somebody used a pepper spray, an alert would go to their emergency contacts and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And the same is true with the taser. I think right now the taser that I'm thinking of, they have an integration with this company called Noonlight, which is very popular. They basically it's a panic button. And it's just a button that you hold on your phone and, you just hold it down. And if you release it, emergency services come. So as you're going to the parking lot in the middle of the night, or, going to work in the middle, late night hours and things like that, you could just kind of hold on to this button. And if anybody approached you, you would just say, hey, if I let go of this button, police are coming. So, and people have reportedly said that that's, worked for them. The other cool thing about that app is it's also integrated with Tinder for like some extra safety features and things like that. So, with online dating apps, like that's pretty cool that it has that integration. But there are other ones too. There's one for Android called Hammer Security, which is pretty fun. It's free. Of course, a lot of these apps come free, but then you can pay for extra like features and stuff, premium features. But they've got some cool ones where it's only for Android though. But if somebody like unlocks your, like say you're in a toxic relationship and somebody's snooping through your stuff and you aren't aware of it, this app has a feature where if somebody puts in the wrong password twice, it actually takes a selfie of them and emails it to you without them knowing. There's no flash or anything like that that goes off on the phone. So the image could be a little bit dark, but you would know who's looking through my phone. And I mean, at least from, being a woman in college and stuff like that, that's probably one of the worst times I've had in terms of like dating people that were just totally out of their mind. And would like, I actually had a boyfriend put a GPS on my phone that I was not aware of. And I discovered it, I think later on looking through like phone accounts and stuff like that. And I was like, why do I have a GPS on? He said it was for my safety. Right. But I wasn't aware of it. So that kind of thing, you can catch those kinds of people like looking through your phone. And then there's some other really cool ones. It's called SOS Jewelry. Invisaware is a company where it's like a bracelet or a keychain or a necklace or a hair tie or whatever. And there's a little button on it. And if you click it twice, it's integrated with an app on your phone. It messages like emergency contacts. It could contact police. There's even, if you get the premium feature, there's a live agent that you could talk to. So if you're uncomfortable, if you feel like you're being, I don't know, followed at a store or uncomfortable in a parking lot or whatever, I keep using that example, but you could talk to an agent and be like, hey, can you stay on the phone with me while I walk to my car? I'm not comfortable right now. Or, show them a description of people around you or whatever. It's like a live agent. It's backed by ADT Security, which we're familiar with. And there's other companies that have similar technology. So there's a lot out there that's pretty cool. Particularly for women, I feel like the jewelry integration is cool, but there is Flare is another company. They're not linked with ADT, but they have some jewelry it's more like beaded. So I feel like it can be like a bit more masculine too.
Wow. Now, if they go to your TikTok, that you share all these ideas on TikTok. I saw the one about the hammer link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do. The only challenge with TikTok is that there's so many videos that it's like to scroll through it and find, can be a little bit hard. The benefit, I talk about a lot of this in the book. Sometimes I try not to lean into too hard into the brands. Like, with the SOS jewelry, I feel like there aren't that many. I could list several brands, which I do in the book. But with some of the other stuff, I didn't list brands because things can change or whatever. So what I want to do now actually is create just an online like freebie with like a list of companies that, I trust to go along with the book. But if not, I also have these kinds of things like on my social media, or people could always just message me and be like, hey, what's a good brand for this? I have my email on my Instagram and stuff like that. So it's pretty easy to like, if you have like a one-off question for me to just respond.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll put all of this in the show notes, where to find you, but share with our listeners where to find you.
So it's pretty easy because my name is Cathy Pedrayes, Cathy with a C. So if you type in Cathy with a C on either like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, I think I'm the first one that pops up. And if you type Cathy P, I'm definitely the first one. So
yeah,
it's pretty.
Spell your last name for them.
Oh yeah. So it's Pedrayes, Pedrayes. But I think if you just put Cathy with a C and then the P, it's me. I'm the only one.
Yeah.
Not that many Cathys spell it with a C.
As mom friend, right? You're like Fox mom friend.
Yeah. That's in my bio. I used to start all of my videos with, hey, it's the mom friends of the group, and then go into my tip. But I started shortening my videos. And so I kind of cut that part out. I want to go back to it though, just to kind of remind people like where that came from to begin with. But yeah, it's in my bio. You can't miss me. I'm the girl in the blue dress. I'm the only one.
Yeah. Well, you're awesome. And your book, tell them the name of your book.
Yes. So the book is called The Mom Friend Guide. This is it right here for video people. The Mom Friend Guide to Everyday Safety and Security, and then the subtitle Tips from the Practical One in Your Squad. Because that's what the mom friend is. The mom friend isn't necessarily a biological mom, but the one, that friend of yours who's always like, oh, you want snacks? I have snacks in my bag. Oh, you want, the mom. It's the mom of the group.
I love it.
Yeah. And so that's the name of the book, and it's found everywhere where books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, indie bookstores, everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome, Cathy. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on. We need this. This is a big concern for us moms. So to keep our kids safe. So
Yeah.
You're doing important work.
Thank you. And what's amazing too is that, a lot of my audience are not moms. Yeah. And they're just as interested, right? Like I have teens following me, and I have people in their 20s and people in their 30s and then people in their 40s too. So there's definitely something unique. Like we seem to all be interested in this topic. But one thing I should mention about my page and about the book too is that I've tried very hard not to make anything scary. It's like I keep it positive, I keep it light. And I do that honestly because I have my 12-year-old and 8-year-old niece that follow me. And so whatever I post, I want to make sure that like if they see it, I'm not freaking them out.
So it's a good one to share with your kids, and it won't be used in the scare tactics. It's a good way to be able to talk to them.
Right, exactly. I don't do the scare tactic thing. It would get me a lot more views. It would help me go a lot more viral, if that's a sentence. But I don't do it because ethically, I just don't think it's right.
Yeah. Well, I love it because you make it fun and interesting, and they're really quick. I like it because I don't need to be more fearful than I already am. So thank you.
Right. Yeah. We could rely on our Netflix, like true crime documentaries for freaking us out.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, thank you, Cathy, for being
Thank you.
here and coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you.